I was there. I saw that happened. It wasn't my fault. Please, believe me.
I have seen a lot in my 27 years on the bench. I have seen people walk into my courtroom wearing rage like armor, and I have seen them walk out wearing nothing but regret. I have watched hands shake over a simple speeding ticket like it was a life sentence. I have listened to mothers swear they were innocent, fathers swear they were right, and children sit behind them like quiet ghosts, learning too early how grown-ups break promises. But on the morning case number 311 was called, I truly believed I was about to hear something ordinary, a minor municipal violation, after hours trespassing, public property, a $47 fine, nothing cinematic, nothing that would leave a courtroom holding its breath. The calendar that day was already crowded, small claims, noise complaints, a landlord dispute that had dragged for months like a dull ache. My clerk had stacked files in neat towers, color-coded sticky notes, fluttering like little flags of bureaucracy. The bailiff had that familiar expression, alert but impatient, the way people look when they've repeated the same routine 1,000 times and still respect it because it matters. The courtroom itself felt alive in the quiet way a theater feels alive before the curtain rises. The benches were half full. A couple of attorneys whispered to clients. Someone in the back unwrapped a cough drop too loudly. The air smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. I adjusted my robe at the shoulders, felt the weight of it settle, and reminded myself, like I always do, that every file is a person, even when it looks like nothing more than a citation number and a fine. Then the clerk called it, case number 311, City versus Elena Markovich. I looked up, and I did not see what I expected. The defendant was not a reckless teenager with earbuds in and a smirk, not a vagrant caught sleeping in the wrong place, not a belligerent man arguing about his rights. She was a woman in her early 30s, 32, my clerk later confirmed. She wore navy scrubs under a beige cardigan, as if she had come directly from a hospital and tried to make herself look less like she belonged there. Her dark hair was pulled into a low bun, no jewelry, no makeup, except the kind exhaustion paints under the eyes. She held herself with the careful posture of someone trying not to fall apart in public, shoulders back, chin level, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Beside her stood an older man, late 60s, thin but upright, holding a folded cap to his chest, as if he didn't know what else to do with his hands. He was not listed as a defendant. He wasn't counsel. He was just there, watching her like she might disappear if he blinked too long. And behind them, on the second bench, sat a teenage girl, maybe 16 or 17, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big, arms folded tight, eyes fixed on the floor, like she was trying to disappear into it. 3 people connected by something invisible. That was the first thing that told me this would not be ordinary. I glanced at the file, a municipal citation, trespassing, Westbrook City Library, March 14th, 11:17 p.m. Security found her inside the archives wing. No damage reported, no theft reported, just there. I lifted my eyes again. Ms. Markovich, I began, voice calm, practiced. You are charged with trespassing on public property, the Westbrook City Library, after closing hours. The citation says you were discovered inside at 11:17 p.m. on March 14th. Library closes at 8. Fine is $47. How do you plead? She didn't hesitate. Guilty, Your Honor. No defensiveness, no sarcasm, no argument, just guilt. That, in my courtroom, is rare enough to make me pause. I let the moment hang for half a second longer than usual, not to intimidate, to invite. Do you wish to say anything before I enter judgment? Her throat moved as she swallowed. Her eyes flicked, just briefly, to the older man beside her and then back to me. Yes, Your Honor. Somewhere behind her, a chair creaked. A pen clicked. My clerk leaned forward slightly, as if her body knew to pay attention before her mind had time to decide. Go ahead, I said. She exhaled slowly, the kind of breath people take before lifting something heavy that's been sitting in their chest for years. I wasn't stealing, she said. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't vandalizing anything. I understand, I replied, but you were inside after hours. Yes, she said quickly, almost desperate. I know, and I'm not saying I didn't do it. I did. I'm saying I need you to understand why. A familiar tension ran through the room. People want the why. They always want the why. I nodded once. Explain. Her fingers trembled. She steadied them against the podium like it was the only solid thing in her life. I was looking for a file, she said. A file? I repeated. Yes, ma'am. What kind of file? She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw something I recognize now. Fear of being judged for needing something that isn't legal to need. Fear of being called dramatic. Fear of being told to move on. My mother used to work at that library, she said finally, 27 years ago. 27. I felt the number before I understood why. She was an archivist, Elena continued. She cataloged city records, court transcripts, foster placement files, adoption summaries, things most people don't even know exist. She used to say, "Paper remembers what people forget." The older man beside her lowered his head, like the sentence had hit him in the ribs. I kept my face neutral, but my mind began to shift. There are two kinds of cases, the ones that stay on the surface and the ones that dig. And you were looking for something your mother left? I asked. Elena's eyes glistened. She died when I was 5, she said. The courtroom did that thing it always does when grief enters. People go still, like they don't want to disturb it. I grew up with my father, she continued. He told me she died from illness. That's all I ever knew. But last month, I found a box in his attic. The teenage girl in the back lifted her eyes for the first time, just for a second, then lowered them again. Elena's voice tightened. Inside were letters, photos, and a photocopy of a court case from 1996. I felt my hand hover near the file on my bench, instinctively. My eyes narrowed. A court case involving you? I asked. She nodded. It had my name on it, Elena Markovich, age 5. The room shifted. A whisper traveled and died quickly. Elena, I said gently, what was the case? Her lips pressed together as if the words tasted bitter. It was a foster removal hearing. The older man flinched like he'd been struck. I looked at him, then back to her. You were placed into foster care? I asked. For 11 months, she said. She said it plainly, but her hands betrayed her, fingers gripping the edge of the podium like she might fall. My father got me back, but I never knew why I was taken. The file was sealed. I asked questions when I was older, and he always shut it down. It's over, he'd say. You're safe now. She swallowed hard, but I'm not safe from not knowing. That was the first truth of the day. Not knowing can be its own kind of injury. I leaned forward. Ms. Markovich, I asked, did you request the file through proper channels? Yes, she answered immediately. I did. I went to the records office. I filled out forms. I waited. I called. I did everything right. And what happened? Her voice cracked. They told me it was destroyed. 2 words. Destroyed. They sounded like a door slamming. Destroyed? I repeated. Yes, Your Honor. City policy, record retention. Anything older than 25 years without active litigation may be disposed. 25 years, which meant the file had been destroyed 2 years ago, and she had discovered it existed only last month. I felt anger flicker in me, not at policy, but at timing. Life does that. It waits until the moment you finally reach for closure, then informs you it threw it away. The city prosecutor, a young attorney with a clean tie and cautious eyes, cleared his throat. Your Honor, he began, the city's position is simple. Trespassing is trespassing. She admits she entered after hours. The fine is minimal. We're not alleging criminal intent, but I held up a hand. I understand the city's position, I said. I also understand my courtroom isn't a machine that stamps fines without listening. The prosecutor nodded, tight-lipped. I turned back to Elena. So you went to the library, I said, because you believed there might be some trace, some copy, something left behind. She nodded. I work double shifts at Mercy General, she said. I don't get off until 10:30 most nights. The library closes at 8. I kept trying to go on my days off, but the archives wing was being reorganized. They kept telling me to make appointments, weeks out. I couldn't wait, Your Honor. Why not? I asked softly. Her eyes flashed. Because I started having these memories. She shook her head, almost ashamed. Not clear ones, just feelings, smells, a hallway, a woman's perfume, a door closing, And then silence, her fingers pressed to her sternum. I thought maybe the file would explain what my body remembers, but my mind can't. I've learned something in my years on the bench. People don't break rules for fun. They break rules because something inside them is louder than the rule. And how did you get in? I asked. She hesitated. The side door, she admitted. The one near the loading dock. It was unlocked. The prosecutor's eyebrows rose slightly. It was unlocked? I repeated, making a note. She nodded quickly. I didn't break anything. I didn't force anything. I just pulled it and it opened. My bailiff shifted his weight. My clerk glanced at me, pen paused. And you went straight to the archives? Yes. And then security found you? Yes, Elena whispered. I looked at the older man again. Sir, I said, you're not counsel, but you're clearly here for a reason. Who are you to Ms. Markovich? His mouth opened and closed once before sound came out. I'm her father, he said, Milan Markovich. His accent was slight, Eastern European, softened by years, but still present. Elena, I said, did you ask your father to come? She shook her head. No, Your Honor, he insisted. The father stepped forward a fraction, as if a rope around his chest had finally snapped. Your Honor, he said, voice trembling, may I speak? I studied him. I've learned to measure sincerity not by volume, but by the way a person holds their truth. His hands were shaking. His cap was crushed in his grip. Briefly, I said, this is a trespass case, not a family therapy session, but I'm listening. He nodded, lips tight, eyes wet. It wasn't illness, he said. The room changed temperature. Elena turned sharply toward him. What? Milan's throat worked. My wife, Anna, she did not die from illness. Elena's eyes widened, and in them I saw that child, the 5-year-old, suddenly awake and terrified. Milan's voice broke. She died because she told the truth. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. My clerk's hand moved to her mouth. Elena, Milan said, turning toward his daughter, I tried to protect you from it. I tried, but you went into that library because I failed to tell you what you deserved to know. Elena's breath came shallow. Tell me now, she said, barely audible. He looked at me, asking permission without words. I nodded once. He inhaled. In 1996, he began, your mother discovered something. She was working in the archives. She saw patterns. Children removed from homes without proper cause, paperwork altered, dates changed, signatures missing. The courtroom became so quiet I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. She believed someone was using the foster system to meet quotas, Milan continued. More removals meant more funding, more contracts, more jobs. The teenage girl in the back bench stiffened, eyes fixed now. Anna Markovich, an archivist, seeing patterns in files. The kind of quiet hero no one writes movies about until it's too late. Milan's eyes filled. She took copies, he said. She brought them to this courthouse. She testified in a hearing, an oversight hearing, about record falsification. I kept my face composed, but my spine straightened. And what happened? I asked carefully. He laughed once, bitter and broken. They called her unstable, he said. They said she was emotional. They said she was imagining it. They said she was a grieving immigrant woman who didn't understand how systems work. Elena's face crumpled. That's not, she started. Milan held up a trembling hand. They dismissed her, Elena. And after that, our life became dangerous. He swallowed. Phone calls, threats, people following her, letters in our mailbox with no return address. And then one night she stayed late in the archives at the library. Elena whispered, that's the night. Milan's eyes squeezed shut. That's the night she was found on the floor, he said, unconscious. They said it was a heart attack. Elena's voice rose, sharp with pain. You told me it was illness. Milan flinched. I told you what I could live with, he whispered. That sentence cut through the room like a blade. I felt my own chest tighten. The prosecutor cleared his throat again, uncertain now. Your Honor, he began, if this is turning into allegations against the city, I must object. This is not the proper forum. I raised my hand, firm. This is my forum, I said, and I am not allowing anyone to silence a human being in my courtroom the way she's describing her mother was silenced. We will proceed carefully. The prosecutor nodded, chastened. I turned to Elena. Elena, I said softly, your father claims your mother left evidence. Elena nodded, tears falling now. She did, she whispered. That night, I found something. The courtroom leaned forward without meaning to. From her bag, she produced a worn library card, lamination peeling, edges soft with age. The name on it, faded but readable, Anna Markovich. On the back, in neat handwriting, room 17, 92 seconds. My breath caught just slightly. What does that mean? I asked. Elena's lips trembled into something like a smile and then broke into grief. My mother used to tell me bedtime stories about numbers, she said. 17 was her lucky number. 92 was how many seconds she could hold her breath underwater when she was a girl. The symbolism wasn't random, it was intimate. Room 17, 92 seconds, a code only love could write. And you went looking for room 17, I said. She nodded. The archives wing has a storage annex behind it, she explained. It's supposed to be closed to the public. I found a sign that said room 17, staff only. She took a shaky breath. I counted, she said, voice almost childlike, 17 steps from the door to the back shelf. I don't know why I counted. I just felt like I had to, like if I didn't, I'd be disrespecting her. I felt my throat tighten. I looked down at the citation again, 11:17 p.m. The time itself contained the number, 11:17, room 17, 17 steps, and the fine, $47, 4 and 7, a broken mirror of the same number family. The court clerk's eyes were wet now, openly. My bailiff stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jump. And what did you find? I asked. Elena closed her eyes. A metal box, she whispered, like a lunchbox, rusted at the hinge. She opened her eyes and looked directly at me. And inside, a cassette tape. A cassette tape. A voice from 1996, trapped in plastic and magnetism, waiting decades to be heard. Do you have it? I asked. Elena nodded slowly. From her bag, she pulled a small handheld tape recorder, old but working, and a cassette marked with a strip of paper. On it, handwriting, for Elena, if the court won't listen. My chest tightened. The prosecutor shifted in his seat, suddenly very aware of the cameras in the courtroom, not official ones, the imaginary ones we all feel when a moment becomes larger than the room. Your Honor, he said cautiously, I would advise against playing potentially inflammatory material without verification. I looked at him, then at Elena. This is not evidence in a criminal trial, I said. This is a human being's explanation for why she walked into a building after hours. The court will hear it. And then, before I could change my mind, I nodded to Elena. Play it. Her hands shook so hard the tape rattled as she slid it in. Click, whir, static. Then a woman's voice, soft, tired, but steady. My name is Anna Markovich. The sound of a throat clearing, a long breath. If you're hearing this, Elena, it means you are older now, and it means I failed to fix what was broken. Elena covered her mouth with her hand, shoulders trembling. The voice continued. They called me hysterical today. They called me unstable. They called me a woman who reads too much into paper. A faint, bitter laugh. But paper is honest. Paper does not forget. People do. Static. I want you to know something, my love. If you ever wonder why you were taken, it was not because you were unwanted. Elena's knees buckled slightly. Her father steadied her without looking at her, like he didn't deserve to. The tape hissed. They are removing children without cause. They are changing records. They are making numbers look clean. They told me to stop looking. A pause. A deeper breath. Shaky now. I will not stop. The recorder crackled like it was struggling to hold the truth. If something happens to me, Elena, if I don't come home, remember this, you were never the problem, the system was. Then, softer, as if she leaned close to the microphone, room 17, 92 seconds. Count, always count. The truth is in the counting. Click. Silence. A silence so thick it felt physical, pressing against the walls. I realized then that I had tears in my eyes, not streaming yet, just sitting there, bright and unwanted, like witnesses to my own humanity. I have always believed a judge's role is to remain composed, but I have also learned that composure is not the same as coldness. I cleared my throat. My voice came out rough. "Elena," I said, Did you tell anyone you found this?" She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "Not yet." "Why?" Her eyes met mine, raw and honest. "Because I didn't go there for revenge," she said. "I went there for permission to stop hurting." My clerk turned her face slightly away, wiping at her cheek. The bailiff blinked hard, once, twice, as if trying to keep his world from leaking out through his eyes. The prosecutor looked down at his file like he suddenly hated the paper. I let a moment pass. Then I asked, carefully, "Elena, the teenage girl sitting behind you, who is she?" Elena inhaled and her voice softened. "That's Mara," she said. The girl didn't look up. She's my patient," Elena continued. "Well, she was my patient. She came into the ER 3 months ago with a broken wrist. Official story was fell downstairs." My stomach tightened. "I've heard that story too many times." "She was in foster care," Elena said quietly. "Bounced between homes. No stable adult. Nobody to sign for her. Nobody to call." Elena's eyes filled again. "I recognized something in her," she said. "The way she flinched when someone raised their voice. The way she apologized for existing." Mara's jaw clenched. "I started checking on her," Elena continued. "Not as her nurse, as a person who knew what it felt like to be paperwork." She swallowed. "And when I found out my file was destroyed and I went looking for answers, Mara came with me." I looked at the girl. "Mara," I said gently, "why did you come?" Mara's shoulders rose and fell in a sharp breath. She lifted her head slowly, eyes guarded but shining. "Because she said the library was the only place that still remembered," Mara said. Her voice was quiet, but it hit the room like a bell. "And," Mara added, swallowing, "because she promised she wouldn't let me get erased." I felt something in my chest crack open. Elena reached back, palm open, and Mara hesitated, then took it. Their fingers intertwined like a lifeline. Now I understood. This wasn't only about Elena's past. This was about Elena trying to interrupt a cycle. I turned to Milan. "Mr. Markovich," I said, "why did you never tell your daughter this?" Milan's shoulders shook. "Because I thought silence was safety," he whispered. He looked at Elena, eyes full of shame. "I thought if she didn't know, she wouldn't hurt," he said. "But she hurt anyway, and she hurt alone." Elena's voice cracked. "I asked you," she said. "I asked you when I turned 18, when I turned 25, when I started nursing school and we learned about trauma. I asked you why I used to wake up screaming." Milan's lips trembled. "And I lied," he whispered. Elena's breath came fast now, like panic. "Why?" she demanded. "Why lie to me?" Milan's eyes squeezed shut, and when he opened them, there was a kind of surrender in them. "Because I was afraid," he said. "Afraid if you knew the truth, you would do what your mother did." Elena stared. "What she did," she repeated. "Fight," Milan said, voice breaking. "And get hurt." Elena's face twisted with grief and anger. "You didn't protect me," she whispered. "You just delayed the pain." Milan nodded once, like he accepted the verdict of his own daughter. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Then Elena spoke again, quieter now, trembling. "I have to tell you something," she said. I leaned forward. She looked at her father. "I remember," she whispered. Milan's breath caught. Elena's eyes went distant, as if she was looking through the courtroom into a corridor only she could see. "I remember. A woman in a blue coat," Elena said slowly. "A social worker. She smelled like peppermint gum. She carried a clipboard." Mara squeezed her hand. "I remember my mother holding me in the doorway," Elena continued, voice shaking, saying, "Please, please don't take her. Please, you can take me instead." A sob escaped her. I remember my father behind her, shouting something I didn't understand because my ears were ringing. Her hands rose to her head, as if trying to hold the memory in place. "And I remember the number," Elena whispered. "The number?" I repeated gently. Elena nodded, tears spilling. They wrote a number on my wrist, she said, in marker, like luggage. And I remember my mother's face when she saw it, like it broke her. She turned to me, pleading without meaning to. Was that normal? She asked. No one should ever have to ask that. My throat tightened. I chose my words carefully. It was done, I said quietly. It should not have been normal. Elena shook, sobbing now, a sound that came from deep from the child she'd buried. Milan stepped closer, then stopped, uncertain if he had the right to comfort her. He whispered, "It was ticket 311. I froze. "Excuse me?" I said. Milan looked at me, eyes wide with regret. "The case number," he said. Back then, the foster removal case, it was labeled ticket 311 on the intake form. That's why. He broke off, voice strangled. "That's why I begged her not to come today," he whispered, "because when I saw the citation number, I knew the past had found us again. Ticket 311, case 311, the same number, decades later, reappearing like a ghost with paperwork. My hands gripped the edge of the bench. I felt the room sway slightly, not physically, but emotionally, like the air itself couldn't believe the symmetry. I forced myself to breathe. I looked at Elena, at Mara, at Milan, and I realized this case wasn't a random trespass. It was a circle closing. I turned to the prosecutor. "Counsel," I said, voice low, "did the city investigate why the side door was unlocked?" He blinked, startled. "Not to my knowledge, Your Honor." "And security found her where exactly?" I asked. He checked the citation. "In the archives annex, room 17 corridor." Room 17. Of course, the room seemed to exhale. I sat back, feeling the weight of everything we'd heard. Then I did something I don't often do in minor cases. I asked for the witness, the security guard. "Call the reporting officer," I said. The prosecutor hesitated, then nodded. A few minutes later, the security guard, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a respectful posture, stood at the podium. "State your name," I said. "Darren Holbrook," he replied. "Mr. Holbrook," I said, "on March 14th at 11:17 p.m., you found Ms. Markovich inside the library." "Yes, ma'am." "Was she attempting to flee?" I asked. "No," he said quickly. She was sitting on the floor." "Sitting?" I repeated. He nodded. "In the corridor near the annex," he said, like she'd been there a long time. She wasn't rummaging. She wasn't running. She was crying. The courtroom tightened. "And what did she say when you approached?" I asked. He glanced at Elena, then back to me. "She said, 'Please don't take it from me,'" he said quietly. And she held up a tape like it was her heart. My throat tightened. "Did you arrest her?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, ma'am. I issued a citation. Policy." "And the side door?" I asked. He hesitated. "That door shouldn't have been unlocked," he admitted. "I reported it." "To whom?" I asked.